Welcome to Depth of Field, an independent filmmaking podcast hosted by Dr. Mike White and Shelby Hagerden, independent filmmakers and industry professionals. Episodes will touch on recent films, the state of the industry, the regional scene in Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota, the occasional gear discussion, and interviews. Stay up to date with our current episodes on Spotify and YouTube.
Hello and welcome to the Depth of Field podcast. I'm Mike White.
And this is Shelby Hagerden.
For the week of May 2nd, 2024. So in this episode, we're going to have our review of the Farm to Film Festival.
Yep.
We will be interviewing Robert Decora of Studio 81 in Cedar Rapids. But we do have a change of plans this week. We were going to go ahead and interview Margot Town. Margot is out of town on a shoot. She went to Minnesota and had to reschedule. So she's not available right now, but will be later. So instead, we will be having our friend Michael Minard, and he's going to talk about his previous feature, You Should Have Killed Me, and his upcoming film, The Wicked Ways of Webster County. So, but before we get going too much, we want to give a little bit of an update on NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters Convention, and some of the awesome technology that came in there. Now, there's way too much to talk about on the show, so we're just going to kind of go through and do some of those things as well. So we're going to do that after our review of the Farm to Film Festival.
For sure.
So just so you know. Okay, awesome. So Shelby, how was Farm to Film?
It was awesome.
It was awesome.
It was so great.
We had never been to this. I think it's only their second year. We weren't so sure what the event was going to be like. It was one of the best festival experiences I've had in a long time. It was terrific.
The town was super cute in Washington, Iowa. Recommend.
The town is a restored, beautiful, turn of the century looking town. It's absolutely fantastic. It kind of looks like the set from Gilmore Girls.
It's true.
It's just absolutely awesome. They actually have the oldest continually operating movie theater in the world, the State Theater. I think it's over 120 years or something.
Like that.
Some absurd number. It's unbelievably
Still
great.
running.
Yep. And then we also saw Mike Saz. Actually, he was the subject of the Oscar-nominated film Saving Brenton. He had actually, among the possessions of some vaudevillians, the Brentons, had found one of the lost Georges Méliès films, which I believe is called The Headless Woman. It was an experimental film done by Méliès, and it was considered a great, significant film history find. It was authenticated by the American Film Institute and put in its archive. It's an absolutely unbelievable thing.
Yeah, he's traveled all over the country talking about the film and going to various celebrations for it. It's really, really wonderful.
For me, one of the fun things was 5 screens.
Yes. All over the town. That's what I really enjoyed, is there were screens kind of scattered throughout the town, especially in the main area there. So you kind of got to go on a little bit of a tour of the town as well while you were going to the screenings.
But here's the thing. They screened 60 films.
Yes.
So...
And very few are played twice.
Yeah.
None on the same day.
They played 60 films. They had a very small encore of winning films on Sunday, I believe. Mm-hmm. But basically, they took a huge number of films. It wasn't a situation where they had one screen running all the films twice or anything like that, or 2 screens where everything's ran twice. There was none of that. Every film was ran one time, with the exception of a few films that were winners of the festival that were ran again. So it was a huge number of quality films.
Yes.
And it was fantastic. And all the screenings were full. They were full of people.
Well, and it was a lot of films, too, that we hadn't seen from filmmakers that we hadn't met, which was really exciting.
It was great.
And the screenings were packed. Absolutely packed. For our screening, they were bringing in additional chairs.
We had nearly 50 people.
Yeah, you could tell that the community was really excited about this and really showed up for it. It was something special. I loved it.
It was great. And then they had a talk back, which was separate from the event, that was in the evening, on Saturday evening, where we had a panel talk back that was curated. It was awesome.
Wonderful.
And in between, they gave us dinner. We got an Italian dinner.
know.
It was fantastic.
I'll
So
take that.
for me, Farm to Film Fest, Washington, Iowa, 5 stars all day. Unbelievable. If you've got films that fit the criteria, you need to submit. It's unbelievable.
Or
We were
just
so
show up
happy.
and watch a film. Go hang out because
Yeah.
it's a really fun time.
Unbelievable. Loved it. So it was just a super good time. So terrific. Let's get into NAB a little bit
Yes.
and talk about the stuff going on with that.
Yeah.
So National Association of Broadcasters just happened, and we did an entire episode about the Black Magic stuff. So Shelby, you just want to run down the bullet points of what was released?
Yeah, so going back, if you want to check out anything about what we talked about on the last episode with Blackmagic, we covered the Ursa 12 Cine camera and the Pixis, which is just a tiny little box camera. And then I also came out with a new version of DaVinci Resolve, which is great.
I would say that
Very-
their release was probably the biggest.
Yes.
Yeah, they
I
probably
think-
had the biggest release of NAB.
At NAB, I think they were the ones to beat this
Yeah.
year.
And it was all anybody could really talk about. The next one is FreeFly. If anybody knows about FreeFly does. They started out, I believe, doing cameras for scientific purposes. So they have cameras that can run at like 680 frames a second. So they have these really high resolution, high speed cameras. They have a new camera called the Ember, and the Ember can be used for like cinema production. It was a big star that came out, there as well. Okay.
And then also Ari, of course, was there. And they have their Amira, which is the lowest price camera within their line. Of course, Ari is going to be a little bit more of an expensive option.
Yeah. But for rental.
But for rental, really wonderful. And they also came out with 2 new Fresnel lights, which are incredible lights. So.
Yeah, Ari's Fresnel lights have always been a big deal. There's not a lot of people who still make the big, powerful Fresnel lights like Ari does. The Amira, of course, is, I think, the last incarnation was about $45,000 of that camera. And this is basically just a new version of that with some firmware upgrades and some other things as well. Okay, awesome. DJI, everybody knows those as the drone people. They have the new Avata 2 drone, which has got a lot of improved function. I've seen some really neat things. But for a lot of our listeners, the big things are going to be... they have 2 new Ronin gimbals that just came out. Those are those kind of automated, kind of smart gimbals
I like those.
that have come out. Yeah, our dear friend Mark has one of those, loves it, swears by it. Also, they have a new autofocus system that can be added, and that's called the LiDAR autofocus system. And it utilizes a lot of the same technology like a focus puller would have, a mechanical focus puller. And then, of course, it uses autofocus technology in there. That was a really big deal from them.
Yeah. And then also, we had the combined booth this year of Red and Nikon. If you wanted to hear a little bit about that merger, I think it's maybe the 3rd episode or so. But Nikon, this year, the big news, that kind of came out of nowhere, is that Nikon purchased Red. So they were together this year, and they came out with some new broadcast streaming updates. But I'll be very curious to see what they bring to the table next year, now that the merger has happened.
And I think something that's interesting is the Red cameras. Basically, they took the existing Red camera, which is a very reliable camera. They went ahead and they took that Red camera technology, and they are now, to have a greater swath of the marketplace, have moved into live broadcast cameras. And some of these, they're working with some wireless and some other things as well, too, to go ahead and do that, for studios that have more money. So I think it was really great. Panasonic has the S5 II and the S5 IIX. Now, these are small body cameras. Those cameras are going to look like the small photographic body. They've got an improved firmware. These are some pretty high-end cameras. I think they're trying to probably compete against the Sony FX3, some of those. Really impressive stuff. Sony didn't do anything really so much with new cameras as they did lenses this year. There was some lens stuff with them, but not significant enough for us to kind of bring up.
And speaking of lenses, there were many that were introduced this year. From Atlas, Blazar, Athena, DZO, Laowa, Siru, Atmos, and Aperture.
Yeah.
Really, really wonderful.
And something I wanted to talk about, the first one there, Atlas. Atlas is a really expensive lens. There's a few Atlas lenses around the state, but they've got a new lens called the Orion series. This is a series of anamorphics, but they've got a macro and a really long focus lens that came into place. So that's going to go ahead and add to those. But as rental options, very real as rental options.
Yep.
Cost-wise, ooh, could buy a car.
Yeah.
Pretty expensive. So not so much. But the next lens I'm really excited about.
Yes. The Blazar New Remus Anamorphic Set, which has 4 lenses and is priced on a budget.
Yep. And these are full frame lenses. They're going to be absolutely awesome. Blazar is really a big competitor, especially with Laowa and DZO, because they tend to make budget glass. So really, really good. That set, I've heard nothing but great things about it. I think there's going to be some big reviews on that coming up.
Yep.
Okay. And then there's the Athena. They added some lenses to their Nisi Prime lens line. Okay, so straight talk on this. Every time I see the footage of these lenses, I kind of lose my mind because I think they're really, really beautiful. These are expensive lenses, but I think they're probably worth the money.
Yep.
And this is a Prime lens line, so I mean, pretty good stuff. I mean, in their Cine lens line. That kit now has 8 lenses in it, so wow, focal distances all day. Okay.
Awesome. And then, of course, we have DZO, which we use DZO lenses
All the time.
We love them. So they made an addition to their Pavo, P-A-V-O, anamorphic lens line and expanded to 9 lenses for that. They also have new Arliss Primes, and there are now 4 lenses in that line.
That's a little bit higher end glass than the Pavo set. We shoot on the DZO and parfocal lenses. Love them all day long.
Beautiful lenses.
We're talking about going to Zoom Anamorphics, but right now that parfocal, we've shot 2 movies on them. They're rock stars. I have them at the college. My college kids shoot on them, and they have been fantastic lenses. Tough, great, smooth operation, just unbelievable.
Really wonderful.
Okay. The Laowa Ranger. Okay, Laowa's got some great budget price lenses. The Ranger 35 Cine Zoom 3 lenses. This is the kit that I am dying to get my hands on. These are new. We reviewed these in an episode coming up. They're Super 35 cinema zooms all day. Love these things. So very excited for those. And when I lay hands on them, I'm going to let everybody know. So that's it.
Awesome. And then there were also the Siru line of lenses, but they had 2 new primes in their Nightwalker series with a small body MFT mount, and the set is now 5 lenses full.
Now, I know a lot of people who shoot on Siru. I've got students who shoot on Siru anamorphics, renting and then buying, of course, too. These are micro 4/3 mounts. So for a lot of people in the Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota scene that are shooting on small body cameras, these MFTs, this is going to be your business all day, every day. The Siru is a great, great lens. I know they shoot, a lot of people shoot on these, and then also there are some Korean lenses that people shoot on as well, but really, really dynamite. Okay. Atmos, which are one of the things from Atmos is they have actually, one of the things they've done is they've primarily worked in timing stuff as far as like small monitors. So being able to have these small timed monitors that work incredibly well. They record, they have wireless systems, they've got all different kinds of stuff with those. They made a surprise move into lighting, which is new. And they have now something called the Sun Dragon rope light. They are crazy expensive because I saw the prices on those. I was like, wow, they really like these lights. But they are kind of a special thing. And that was a real surprise move that Atmos is kind of moving into lighting. So that was kind of new as well. And on that same topic.
Yeah, and then of course there's Aperture, which Aperture is, obviously... they've been around for quite a long time. But they are creating or have come out now with some inflatable panel lights. Yeah,
it's called the Infinimat.
Yeah.
And they are basically glowing balloons, kind of. They're able to, they inflate them, and then they have a way that they light the panel, and it's this really smooth, really clean lighting system, and it's cool. And some of them are huge, so it's got some really neat options as far as lighting goes, and it's a real soft light. So you are able to get that soft box kind of feel from this. But yeah, it's new. It's called, the Infinimat. So they're very, very cool. You have to kind of look that up. Okay. So other than that, we're down just kind of getting down to the end. Let's talk about Tilta.
Yeah, so for Tilta, there are two new fluid head tripods built for larger cameras and a new carbon fiber matte box.
I love Tilta stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like it's crazy expensive. I tend to usually buy small rig stuff, but Tilta equipment is fantastic. Both Tilta and Small Rig have had some really good tripods in this last probably 2 years. So really excited to see them coming up with those tripods. And I want to say that they're both 75 millimeter bowls on those.
I think so.
That sounds like them. I don't think any of them are 100. There might be one that is, I'm not sure. But anyway, but they are really, really nice equipment as well. And speaking of that, Small Rig also had a new tripod as well. I'm very familiar with that tripod. It's a beautiful tripod. And then, of course, we're down to the very last item.
Yep, and the very last one is Deity, and they came out with a new S3 shotgun mic.
I think people are trying to compete with Sennheiser because Sennheiser's got that one fantastic mic. It runs about $1,000, and they've been kind of the king for a really long period of time. So, and Deity makes great stuff. I've got some of the intro line Deity mics for field production for some of my students, but I think with the S3, they're trying to step it up into the big boy market with some of those as well. So, I mean, I think that one Sennheiser microphone has been kind of the king, and don't ask me the number, I never remember it, but it is really, really, really big. Well, that kind of concludes our talk about NAB, so I think we should get on to our interviews.
Sure.
All right, on our next segment, we have Michael Meinard, who we have never really met in person before. So this is kind of our first time. We're online friends, and I think we've probably shook hands as we walked by at a festival or something here and there, just never really had a chance to talk. Iowa's a big state, folks. I'm just going to point that out. So welcome to the show, Michael. We're so thrilled to have you on.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys doing this for me last minute.
I'd love if you could kind of dive into a little bit about your background, your education, kind of what you do, just where you come from.
So my background in regards to film actually really stems from the music industry. Before I was making shorts or making features or things like that, little Michael, like 18, 19-year-old Michael, got signed to his first record label and was in a metal band out of Minneapolis. And actually the first time I went to college was to the Institute of Production and Recording. So all of my background is all music and audio based. And so basically what people don't know is you might be signed to a record label, but you're still broke. It's not like you're going to get like a sign-on bonus or something like that. So it was like, okay, we have this album. Now we need artwork for it. So then I learned how to do album artwork and did it myself. And then it was like, okay, well, now we'd like to release this album and have a single with a music video. It's like, well, we don't have any money, so I'll just learn how to do a music video myself. And then that quickly built into me doing several music videos to the point where I was like, man, fuck music videos. Like, I want to make movies. And but everything comes from kind of that audio background, being a musician, being in metal bands, things like that, to finally making my way into being a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm. And you did go to film school, though. You went and got an associate's degree, right?
Yeah. So I went into a program. I call it film school. It's technically not film school, which I'm sure we can go back and forth on. But it's a degree called digital mass media is the degree. And they go everything from like photography classes to video classes to like survey for commercial film as a class. So they teach you how to do commercials, things like that. So it's kind of just like this all encompassing like film track, if you will, but it's not considered to be a film school. But I call it that because that's what it was to me. I feel like every student has a little bit of freedom to make their education what they want it to be. So even though I was making homework assignments that were like, hey, make this 30-second commercial, I was like, okay, but how can I make this as cinematic as possible? So to me, it was film school. So pause in between my opening story. So I was in a metal band, made music videos, doing all that. We had a falling out. I moved back home at the age of like 22, and I was faced with a decision. Do I move back in with my dad at the age of 22 and start over and basically have nothing, or do I do something with my life? So I decided to join the Army. I did 4.5 years in the Army, got out, had my GI Bill, and then I had that spark again of what do I really like doing? And I just remember really like making music videos and things like that. So I was like, I think I'm going to use my free college for going to film school, doing that route. So that's what I did. And I guess the rest is kind of history. I've been with KWWL Channel 7 for about 3 years now, 3.5 years, somewhere in there. So. Yeah. Well, it's also very similar to what my instructors have. They all started out with broadcast degrees, and now they teach various programs at the college that I currently am an adjunct for. So
it's funny, you and I actually have really similar backgrounds because I actually wanted to be a sound engineer. That was my original objective, and then film school wasn't available in this part of the country, so I got a degree. I'm so old. Degree I have was called broadcasting. So that was the degree I ended up with, which is probably very similar to what you did. So your current job, I think we also have this in common. So you're working for a station. So what exactly do you do over there? Are you in news or commercial production, or what are you doing?
So I'm in commercial production. I don't really touch anything on the news side. We do several like special events or things like that. But my whole thing is, if for example, like if Shelby had like her own like arts and crafts store and wanted to advertise with us, right? So she would say, hey, I want to make a 30-second commercial. I want to advertise my arts and crafts store, whatever it may be. They would send me out. We would talk to Shelby, figure out what kind of commercial she wanted. We would go ahead and shoot it, write the script, do the voiceover, edit it, everything under the sun. And then basically once she approved the commercial, then that's what you end up seeing on air. So.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
And I also did that. I worked at KCAU, and then I worked at KTIV. I was a commercial producer at both of those places for some period of time. So I think you and I are on the exact same career trajectory. The next step for you would be to become a college professor, I think. And that would,
it sounds like you're adjuncting.
I mean, I'm an adjunct. So, I mean,
I don't know. I'm starting to become a little frightened.
Coming after you, Michael. There's only room for one Michael.
I know. You never know. We were talking a little bit. Of course, I don't think there's anybody in Iowa that didn't get to laugh at You Should Have Killed Me. And that was your first feature. So do you want to expand on what that was like, making that picture? We've got some friends that are involved with it. So just kind of fill us in what that last maybe 2 or maybe 3 years has been like. I know you've got a new one coming up, but I don't think we can really give this interview justice without talking about that picture.
Yeah. So basically how it started was I actually wrote a full screenplay. It's the first feature screenplay I've ever wrote, called Dissonance. And I really, at that point in time, I had only done like 6 or 7 short films, all between like 35 minutes to the shortest being like 5 minutes. And so I didn't have a whole lot of confidence that I could really achieve like a feature-length film at that point. So You Should Have Killed Me actually started out as a proof of concept film, which would have been another short film called The Dead Man Walking. And what ended up happening is we had a couple of table reads, and the cast and crew loved it so much at the table reads that they were like, dude, you just have to turn this into a feature. And I was like, so I was like, all right, we'll do it. So I turned it into a feature. I added some characters, took some characters out, extended some scenes, things like that. But even then, it was still like a huge learning experience for me. I've said this multiple times, but if it wasn't for Michael Huntington and Brittany Benedict, like that movie would have never happened. They taught me a lot. Hopefully, vice versa. I don't know if I taught them a whole lot of anything because they were super professional the whole time. But yeah, it basically just turned into this feature. So we shot it, and yeah, I don't know. It was. I don't want to think that I'm like that hard of remembering everything, but I don't know. It was kind of like one of those movies. Like there wasn't really a big casting period. Like I kind of wrote the roles specifically with people in mind, and everyone decided to do it, and it was like a huge statewide effort, and it just came together nicely. We booked out, like I took like my 2 weeks of vacation that I get here to do it. And so we shot like 14 days in a row and just busted it out. Yeah. And then after that, it took me another like 6 months to edit it all together. But yeah, it was one of those things where like it really truly was kind of like a passion project for everyone. Which I was very blessed to have. I think if no one believed, or if one single person didn't believe that it could happen, I don't think it would have. Like everyone was very much involved in the process. Like I cannot take credit for that film. Yes, I wrote the script. Yes, I was the director, but everyone involved made that film happen. And there were so many cool things that happened because of it. Like some of the characters that got casted in it had never acted before. And they turned around and just started acting in everything. And now they have full on careers now. And I think it also kind of showed, I don't want to take 100% credit, but since you guys are kind of in the same industry, I'll let you guys weigh in on this. This is like a quote from somebody in the industry that said this to me recently, which I was very kind of honored and humbled by. But they had said like, man, with you making You Should Have Killed Me and getting it picked up by worldwide distribution and being out there, it's like you kind of just showed every independent filmmaker in the state that it's possible. So they're like, that's the reason why you can't find help, is because we're all trying to do the same thing that you did. And I was like, well, that's great, but like, I don't have a crew now. So, yeah. But yeah, I would like to think that because of that film, at least with the people involved, they're seeing new opportunities. Like they all deserve it. They're all super talented. And I wish the best for every one of them. But like I said before we started the podcast, like, man, it is coming back to bite me in the ass super hard right now.
Well, and I think the region you're in, there's a lot of production in that region, and I think there's some pretty ambitious filmmakers there. So I think a lot of that is they're all probably busy with their own stuff. Well, we're very fortunate. We're right on the border of Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota, so we pull from all over.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you look at like our stuff, I mean, we have actors that are from 6 hours away sometimes. So I mean, it's
and
not
crew that drives in and stays overnight and
yeah. So I mean, we have a lot of that, but we also too, because I mean, we're starting to get ready for feature number 5. So I mean, because we've done it for a while, we have a system kind of in place and stuff too. I mean, the same ones all the time. We have a lot of repeat offenders, we'll call them.
Yeah,
so,
I think we've been able to kind of like get lucky in the sense that we have a really like loyal crew.
Oh.
Of like, okay, whatever we're working on, they're going to come back and we're going to have the same people, like Allie Boyd, who has become my best friend. She's also our cinematographer and our colorist.
Yeah, she just added me on Facebook.
And she's fantastic. Use her. She's awesome. She'd be a great crew member.
Crazy talented.
But she's super talented, but she's really loyal and is like, yeah, let's work on this. Mm-hmm. Nathan Blizzard's the same way, really, really wonderful crew. And I don't know, we've been very fortunate with that, I think.
We're lucky with the crew and the casting.
Yeah, I might be a glutton for punishment, and not that I can do it this time, because like I said, everybody I know that helped me on my last film is all wrapped up in their own features, which is great. Like
It
I'm
comes
not
together though.
discrediting that at all. However, I am a glutton for punishment because I usually try to use new people every time I make a film. I'm a big believer of like giving people an opportunity, giving people a shot. So I do have like those principal people that it's like, okay, any important role I need, like a DP, AD, audio guy, something like that. It's like, okay, you know, this is my like main 4 people, but at the same time, it's like, you know, let's give this person a chance at like script supervision, or let's give this person a chance at this or this or that. Let's give this person a chance at like gaffing, you know, whatever it may be. I just like to work with different people and meet as many people as I can. So
I think we do that to an extent. We do because you know we always have. It's usually pros, alumni, and students. That's our set. Usually, it's a mix of kind of people. I think. Yeah, I think so. But so now we've got to know about the new picture. I saw that. Is it a GoFundMe? I thought I saw a GoFundMe go up the other day. So tell us about this new picture and what's going on with it.
Yeah, so it's a Indiegogo campaign. We're asking for $15,000, which is a comfy number, and basically what that all kind of entails is we can pay our cast and crew immediately. So we're not having to do like a deferred payment plan like I had to do with You Should Have Killed Me. And now I'm in the hard boat of basically waiting for enough Bayview checks to stack up until I can actually pay everyone. We can just do that immediately. It also covers, you know, props, basically set items that you need. I mean, you guys have all been through it before. But then also what I learned from my first feature is I kind of want to leave like at least $2,000 left over on the tail end for just marketing. Like whether it be festival entries or whether it be, you know, say, like, I'm not saying we'll do this again. You know, I could, if I wanted to be grandfathered in with Bayview, since I have a good relationship with them. I don't want to say I have guaranteed distribution, but also at the same time, I have guaranteed distribution. To a certain extent, I mean, they could see the film and say no. I mean, it's not a question. But at the same time, it's like, I would also like to have a couple, like at least a lump sum left over to basically be like, hey, can you put this towards like marketing the film more or putting it in more places or whatever it may be. So that was kind of like my big takeaway with You Should Have Killed Me is like, you got to leave some money on the post side in order for, you know, marketing, as I call it, whoring myself out, which is technically what I'm doing on this podcast. So, but I mean, it's all necessary in order to make everything work and come together and things like that. So
it's tough. Yeah. I mean, that's always the tough part.
But most importantly, though, is I want to pay my cast and crew day one
in advance
before we even shoot. I want to have everyone taken care of. I never pay myself on any film I've ever made. I've never made money on any film I've ever made. It's all gone back to the cast and crew. And so that $15K is literally taking care of everyone that works with me. It has nothing to do with me. It's not going to me, whatever.
That's good. So tell us about the premise of this film. Well, give us a log line or at least something on it so we know what we'd be working on.
Yeah, so it's actually inspired by a true story. All of the events took place, for the most part, in 2005 in a very small town in Illinois. Basically, what the synopsis is of the real life story is a witch convinced these two guys that if they wanted to join her coven, that they had to seek out and murder a 16-year-old pregnant girl. And that was how they were going to get into her coven. We did take quite a bit of creative liberties, and we did change up the story. Some examples of that would be, like the ending of Inglourious Basterds, where they kill Hitler, or, sorry, spoiler alert, or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where the Tate murders are a little bit different. So we do kind of do that, and we kind of take our own creative liberties. But really, the film is kind of like inspired by those events, but it's kind of like a slice of life family drama. So when I first found out about this story, immediately my creative filmmaker brain, which I'm sure both of you can relate to, was like, what were those guys doing the day before that happened? Things like that. So really, it's just kind of like it's kind of similar to like Fargo, if you will, where it's kind of like a dark comedy or like a family drama with just real dark overtones throughout. But really, it's just kind of a slice of life family drama, which just has some very harsh consequences for those involved. So,
Wow. So this film, and where are you planning to shoot?
pretty much all across the state. We're still finalizing some destinations. We're not even out of the possibility of having to shoot a couple of scenes in Omaha, where a lot of the cast and crew are from.
So is the film already cast then?
We have a pretty stacked cast. I'm impressed once again with all these features going on. I'm surprised that I got the cast that I did.
I think there's a few folks that we've worked with on that cast. So
Yeah.
a few
So
folks.
my
So,
two
yeah,
Omaha
we're
folks
excited.
are Jessica Johnson and Kate Pryor. Yeah,
Kate
they're
Pryor,
both
yeah.
in it. Yeah.
And I know Kate. Kate's auditioned for us. We just never seem to have the right role for her. We just never have something that's for her. But Jessica Johnson, of course, we've worked with a lot. She did a short with us, and then she's actually one of the leads in The Cross. She actually plays my grandmother actually in the film. So she's in that. She's
That's
there.
wonderful.
She's really good too.
Yeah, she. I will say this. I don't want to give too much away, but I kind of already put her talent highlight out there. She plays the witch in the film, and her audition scared the absolute shit out of me. She was very terrifying in the side that I sent her to audition with, and we. As soon as I got it, I was like, no one else could play this role. Like, she has to do it.
She is a real talent. So
Really
and she's a total pro. You're gonna love working with her. I mean, we love working with her, and she's so great mentoring other actors on set. And we've just had, the success of The Cross was largely due to her, because she was so good working with those actors, especially the underage actors. She was just so good with them. So you're gonna really enjoy working with her.
sure.
She's dynamite.
Yeah, she's been an absolute sweetheart, just with like the 30, 45 minute, hour long phone calls that we've had. She's been so nice to work with.
Well, I'm sold. So why don't you go ahead and fill us in? Where do we find the information on this so people can support the project?
Yeah, usually we've been pumping this a lot on Facebook. I'm sure secretively, even behind those nods, you're like, yep, I fucking know. I see it all the time. The reason why is, like I said, we're in kind of our marketing horror phase. The props of working at a news station is I have a lot of sales executives that work here. And so I was asking them, I go, how do I draw people's attention to our Indiegogo campaign without beating the same link over and over and over and over again? He was just like, try to make new content every day that all kind of funnels into that same link. But he's like, try to keep it interesting. So Tyler and I have been making skits. We've been making short commercials. We're talking about trying to like reenact like office style skits, or even doing our own ADR on like famous movie scenes, but changing the dialogue to like "you should donate," that kind of thing. So we're trying to stay creative. We're trying to stay as positive as possible. But to answer the question where you can find it is if you just go to Indiegogo.com and just search the Wicked Waves of Webster County feature film, you can find it that way. If you look up Red Arc Productions on Facebook, you can also find everything there. And then if you're my friend, or if you look up Michael James Minard, you can also find everything there. So that's kind of where we've been targeting, what we've been kind of doing. I was most recently proud of our latest sketch. We did the stereotypical Sarah McLachlan commercial, where we had the in the eyes.
That's just cruel.
and then Tyler and I look super sad, and we have a voiceover that's like, "This is Michael and Tyler, two filmmakers struggling to survive in the world of the film industry." And
That's
so yeah, it was
awesome.
pretty fun.
Really fun. Well, we're really excited about the film. We can't wait to see it when it's finished, and we wish you all the success in the world in getting it produced. We realize how tough it is, and we're actually not making a feature this summer. We're actually doing some proof of concept stuff, so we're taking a break to finish the stuff with the last feature.
Sometimes you have to.
Well, we just
Sometimes
don't have
you
enough.
to.
We just don't have enough time, and I've got a script that needs a lot more attention, and Shelby's got a million things going too. So this is the summer of we're going to do a couple of shorts. We're going to do that, and then next summer.
Sometimes you need to. It's such a good feeling when you can just like, most of the short films I've done, minus like one or two, like I've just shot over the course of like 4 to 6 hours in a day. And then when you can just turn around and edit something in like 2 or 3 days, it's just like so gratifying because you're like, oh man, like this is such high quality work, but at the same time, like it only took me like 4 days to do. And sometimes you just need that morale boost, especially after coming off of a feature where you just feel like the biggest piece of shit on the planet.
It's tough stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's that thing. They always say at one point a feature will defeat you, and then you have to just pick yourself up and go forward. And that is really true.
I mean, for me, it's just your stereotypical imposter syndrome. So, I mean, I tell my classmates all the time, I'm like, look, I walked out of this program with all of my instructors telling me that I was the top of my class, that I was the best student they ever seen, and then I got into the real world and realized how much I was terrible.
Yeah.
And I was like, so my advice to you is whenever you think that you're the best at something, you're not. And so I mean, obviously I've been dealing with that post, graduating, but yeah, I just always try to remember, it's like, as soon as I always actually get worried, to be honest with you, as soon as I start thinking that like, maybe I am pretty good, I'm just like, nope, like
Wash it down.
get that out of your head. Cause as soon as you start thinking you're good at something, like you're going to be fully disappointed here in the next couple of weeks or a month or
I think
whatever
that's kind
it
of
is.
just part of the game. You know how that goes. But anyway,
I have my hot takes.
Michael told us that he had a hot take or two before
hot
we
takes.
tuned out. So okay.
Yeah. This is for both of you, but I want to say if I had to pick a percentage ratio, it would be like 80% for Shelby, but then 20% for Michael.
Well, I like
Chapman.
this.
So, I've been a fan of Iowa Film for a very long time, and that includes a membership as well. And I remember in maybe 2020, 2021, to put it simply, Shelby shit all over my man Quentin Tarantino.
I knew it was going to go here. I had a
And
feeling.
so if you know me, which I know you both do, you know I am very much influenced by Quentin Tarantino. So my question to more so Shelby, not so much Mike, is what's wrong with Quentin Tarantino?
Okay. If we want to get
Because
into
I will say before you begin, I will say I prefaced, I had mentioned Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I had mentioned Inglourious Bastards, and both you were
And
like,
you can like what you like.
so obviously you've seen them. So I'm just kind of like, so is it you don't like the man, or you don't like his art, or you don't like both?
Well,
What is it?
here's my thing with it. And Michael, people have ended friendships with me over this, which I think is absolutely absurd. Just me not liking Tarantino is an issue. I don't like what you want to like. No big deal. I think that Tarantino has some really, really great moments in his films. I think he's very creative. I think he utilizes like the way he tells stories is incredibly interesting. He's very good at being able to turn things on its head, take really like possibly dull ideas and like make something really creative and something really spectacular out of it. He's a great genre filmmaker. I mean, he understands genre better than a lot of the other filmmakers in the industry right now. But there are two things, and Mike has some of this as a film professor, and then me as a theorist. A lot of, not so much him being influenced by other filmmakers, but more theft from other filmmakers that is kind of going unrecognized, which bothers me.
The greatest flattery is
Well,
stealing.
and it's one thing to steal, another thing to be inspired. I think.
Yeah, I know where you're coming
I think
from.
Jean-Luc
He's
Godard
fully
would have
admitted
fought
that
him
he
a little
steals
bit.
all the time.
But beyond that, too,
Well,
there's
Band de Par, the name
Yeah.
of his production company, is the name of a Godard film.
Yeah.
And also, too, Pulp Fiction is at times shot for shot Godard films.
Yes.
So
the dance. There are two different dance scenes that are, straight.
they're shot for shot.
Straight taken out of like Viva Savie, it's shot for shot, which is great. But we get into the issue too of like later on, Tarantino then says, I've outgrown Godard. I've outgrown this person, and I dislike the lack of humility there. Yeah, I think it's really important to like maintain that humility as an artist. I don't think we really outgrow anybody. We don't outgrow the films that we loved as a child because that stays with us. We don't outgrow, Godard or Bergman. They're always with us. It's very important to continue to be influenced by these artists and to maintain that humility. From the other side of things, and I'm tend to be kind of the outspoken feminist in Iowa for film, which has gained me some enemies, which I didn't expect.
Which I have no problem.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. But he's done some things on set that are very questionable for me for a million different reasons. Inglourious Bastards, when the actress in that is being strangled, it's Tarantino's hand in there, and her fear is very real in that moment. There was a lot of things that happened with Uma Thurman on Kill Bill's sets, and then also there's been a lot too with Polanski and his defense of Polanski, and kind of saying during that situation that girl deserved whatever was coming towards her. So there's some other things in there with Tarantino that, for me, I think it's great to like what you like, but also to have the humility, and then also to have the humility to recognize that Tarantino has done and said some messed up things. And, it's totally acceptable. I mean, we love Woody Allen films. I think Woody Allen is a fantastic director, but I can also say Woody Allen has done some messed up things. So I think it's just being able to have both perspectives, share both sides, I think is really important.
I kind of have the film professor too. My view is kind of like, if you look at a film criticism book, you very seldom see Quentin Tarantino in there because he's so busy imitating other people that lot of times people are like, there's not a lot of original here. But you'll also see like Wes Anderson, who does the same thing, but is very open about it. And he'll say, like, this is from Summer with Monica. And he'll sit there and go, look at these shots. This is from that and this. And he assembles it together into something interesting. And, I wouldn't per se, I don't have a thing against Tarantino as much as I think he's overblown. That's maybe my hot take. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll give you guys a hot take real quick, and then I have one last question for both of you because I have to do it. Here's your hot take. I've always said that, like, I love Tarantino's work, and yes, I know all of these things you just explained. But I've also always said that if I ever met Quentin Tarantino in person, I would probably fucking hate him.
Oh,
And
And the reason why, and I can literally see this happening, is I unfortunately am one of those filmmakers that does not watch near as many movies as I should. In fact, my co-director Tyler of Wicked Ways of Webster County is very much so it's like every week is like, oh hey, I watched this over the weekend, I watched this, and I'm like, yeah, I haven't watched any of that. And he's like, what? He's like, dude, it's been out for like a year. You gotta watch it. I'm like, sorry, man, like I haven't watched it. I'm sorry. So like I am kind of like that. So I literally have almost imagined this conversation where it's like if I ever met Tarantino and I was just like, yeah, I think, one of my favorite films is this. And I can just like hear his voice being like, yeah, but you got to kind of think about it this way. And I'd just be like, dude, shut up. Like, I don't give a fuck, man. Like, just stop. And so like, it's kind of one of those like never meet your hero moments, I think, more than anything. But like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that. But I do have to ask, because it's more so fun for me than it is for you guys. What's your favorite Tarantino films?
Oh, well, okay. That's pretty easy for me. I like Pulp Fiction because I'm a Godard theorist and I feel like I'm watching a Godard movie.
that is true.
And everybody at Cannes felt the
Okay.
same way. Everybody at Cannes was like, oh, look, he made a Godard movie. And I was like, oh, I love this. It's like watching it. And I did. I got to feel like I was watching my favorite French film director, which is absolutely dynamite. So I love that, and yeah, so that's easy for me. That's an easy question.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to say The Hateful Eight, because I think it's a really great example of utilizing, very minimal sets and, being able to like kind of create a play within a film.
That's a
I think
safe
it's-
answer, and I like it.
Yes.
Yeah, I've actually. It's not so much a safe answer. It's actually really brilliant. I actually tell like young filmmakers all the time, especially my students, because you'll have those students that are like just so grandiose with their ideas, and I'm like, guys, like one, you don't have a budget for a grandiose idea, and I was like, and two, if you stretch yourself too thin, it's not going to be as good. So my advice all the time to them is have no more than 3 or 4 actors and try to keep it in 1 or 2 settings. And the fact that like Tarantino kind of did that as like an already super famous filmmaker, I was like, this is really good. Like,
Well,
this
it's
is great.
a great example
So
of
I'm surprised by your answer, Shelby, but at the same time, I'm not.
what did you
surprised
think
by
my
your
favorite
answer.
was going to be?
I actually didn't know, but when you said The Hateful Eight, I was kind of like,
There you go.
really? Like
I'm
for Kill
keeping you on
Bill
your
or Inglourious Bastards or yeah, you did, you got me. Yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome.
For
That
good
was
hot takes.
I just remember Shelby catching some heat from
I did.
speaking out against Tarantino, and I was like, well, I got to go to the source. And hear what
I've
this is
caught some
about.
heat in my day, Michael,
So-
so I appreciate you coming to the source and like getting the full story.
Yeah, she can take it though.
I can take it.
Well, that's the best thing to do is you just gotta go to the source. I've learned in my various age and wisdom that the truth is not always ever what you think it is. So you just gotta honesty is the best policy, and that's just kind of the
Agreed.
way I go.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We
Yes.
really appreciate it, and this has been super fun. So this is
Absolutely.
we can't wait to see everything and experience the success of the film. So we'll talk to you next time. Okay, on our next segment, we have a very special guest today. We've got Robert DeCora of Studio 81 in Cedar Rapids. So first of all, welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
And I have to admit, we have never met face-to-face before, but we're going to correct that one of these days. We're just kind of online friends, but, Shelby and I seem to be friends with all the production folks, so it's just great. So we're really, really curious about some stuff that you've got going on, and we just kind of want to introduce you to our audience, too.
Yeah. So if we could just go ahead and hop into a little bit about your background and how you got into production, that would be great.
Well, I'm originally from Florida. I grew up surfing there. And I went to Newport Beach, California to continue my surfing. And I met somebody on the beach where I ended up becoming their assistant. And they were casting director for MTV. So I was assistant to the casting director. And that kind of just, kept going. And I ended up in LA, and I ended up doing some camera work, and then ended up just making a little bit of a name for myself out there. We did a lot of camera work for about 8 or 9 years, and then I moved to Kansas City in 2015, where I started sports broadcast. So initially with the Royals and the Chiefs, like in-house, but then I ended up going just straight to broadcast. So CBS, ESPN, ABC. So you watch a game on TV, I'm running one of those cameras. Typically, I was on the sideline, and then I was typically doing, they call it laces and faces. So I was going into the locker room, getting, all that juicy, just like, stuff just to feed that they can go to break with, or, come back from commercials. So did that. And then I was doing a UFC fight in 2018, and I saw somebody with a camera at the fight. Obviously it wasn't a broadcast camera, and I was, we got to talking, and I found out that, it was a little bit more lucrative maybe if I had my own camera and did my own thing. So then that's when I started my company, Ajax Media. And I've been doing that since 2018, been fairly successful. And then I decided I moved to Cedar Rapids in 2019. And then that's when I realized that there was not any access really to studios here. So purpose-built sound stages, things that were, cut off from noise and that were made for video production. And COVID happened, things happened, kind of, put the pause on it, but then, an opportunity arose, and I decided, hey, let's build something not only for myself, but that will benefit the Iowa community, the Iowa film community, and hopefully put more people to work and bring more opportunities into the state.
Mm-hmm. Both Shelby and I have commercial production backgrounds. I worked in agency work, and also I did my time doing news and sports as well. And Shelby started that way too. So
Nice.
So it sounds like we've got kind of similar backgrounds a little bit. We're really excited about Studio 81.
Yeah.
What can you tell us? I know I'm watching your updates and seeing remodels and lighting kits and stuff like that. Tell us all about it. We're fascinated.
Yeah, so Studio 81, it's in downtown Cedar Rapids, in the heart of downtown. So 3rd Street and 3rd Ave, the Armstrong Center, and actually on the other corner of that block is the Granby Building, and which is catty corner to the Paramount Theater for anybody that knows Cedar Rapids. And in 1981, they decided to connect the buildings. And so they built it up between them, blew some holes, in each exterior wall to connect it. And so that's how Studio 81 kind of got its name, because it was built in 1981, and just paying, homage to that. And I'm very lucky that I was kind of renting like a co-working desk, and I saw a room that they were using for storage. The owner of the building is huge on entrepreneurship and also developing downtown Cedar Rapids. He wants to, revitalize it, revive it. And so I didn't know this at the time, but whenever I proposed turning that space into a studio, his eyes lit up, and he was more than happy to help me make it happen. And so Studio 81 initially was just going to start as a space for me to utilize for clients that was, purpose built, where they can show up and everything is ready to go. It's a turnkey production studio for myself. But then I started seeing that there were other people that have my issue here in Iowa. So just because we're in Iowa doesn't mean that we don't service, larger or companies that would typically use a studio, but maybe there's nothing here, so then they go to Chicago. And so I got to thinking, well, I shouldn't just build this for me, I should build it for others. And then, obviously I needed to tweak a few things, and lo and behold, we started going down this path. I posted an Iowa film on Facebook, the community, and I was just saying, what would you like to see in a studio? What would you want if you were going to rent a studio? And then I started putting all that together. And then within a week of posting that, somebody reached out and said, hey, we have a shoot, and it's for, it's I don't think I can say the name, but it's one of the top 5 pharmaceutical companies in the world. They were interviewing a doctor, and instead of taking that doctor to a studio in Chicago, they brought the whole crew into Studio 81. And so, we can get into the benefits of that later. But there was nothing at the time. They set up a green screen, but now with all the construction that we've done, we built a 3-wall cyclorama or cyc wall. It is the only one that's, I believe, publicly accessible in the state. There might be a 2-wall and a couple photographers. I could be wrong. I know that the University of Iowa has one, and I know there's some other virtual production stages. But I wanted to create something that if you are a videographer, photographer, production company, that when you're searching, like, this is going to be the place that that you can produce something that would rival anywhere in the country. And the benefit is you're in Cedar Rapids, so the cost of flying in here, hotels, everything is going to be so much cheaper. And so
Well, and I think too, I've been watching very slowly. I've really enjoyed your updates. I saw your cycloramic wall go up, and I kind of saw some of those things too. Especially geographically, I think the placement of that is going to be really valuable.
Yeah.
And there's quite a bit of production in the Cedar Rapids area. It may not be professional commercial production. There's a lot of hobbyists and stuff like that too. But being able to have access to that there, I think is going to be really good. Obviously, that was one of the reasons we wanted to have you, on the show.
for sure.
Yeah, so I think we've kind of got into a little bit here, just about kind of your goals and your objectives with the studio. But could you dive into those just a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. So the one thing that I learned that I thought was just incredible from that initial shoot that we had pre-opening was we drove a production to come into Cedar Rapids instead of going out. And so what that did was it brought in 2 producers from New Jersey and 4 or 5 crew from Chicago. They stayed at 2 blocks away at the DoubleTree. They had breakfast downstairs at Coffee Republic. They ordered lunch from various things. And it occurred to me, I was like, even though it's on a small scale, we're driving tourism, so to speak, dollars here. And they also hired 5 or 6 local crew. So not only did it bring in outside dollars that were going to be spent somewhere else, but it also provided jobs for that local crew for 2 days. And that made me feel awesome. I was like, this is now a goal that I have. I want to make, if you have a choice between Chicago, Minneapolis, Cedar Rapids, I want you to pick Cedar Rapids every time. And so,
Yeah.
and that's, I guess my goal and objective started as a fun place for me to create. And then it turned into, how can I almost have like a creative renaissance for Cedar Rapids? How can I help the local community? Because I have experience in larger markets. I lived in LA for quite a bit. And so I know that we'll never be on that scale, but if we can do something to at least start to bring in more productions, more people that are willing to give us a shot, I think that we can really help the Iowa film community and help that grow and become more sustainable. And then maybe over time, there could be credits or, tax incentives that could, go out to hopefully entice more people to want to come here, because we do have the talent pool. Because in some way, shape, or form, whatever I'm doing is helping to foster and grow that, instead of people wanting to leave and go somewhere else because the work isn't here. Well, let's create a place where that work can be done, and let's expand on that.
Right. Well, and I think too, when we take a look at the future of production in Iowa, spaces like that are really vital. Also the tax incentive, which is going to happen. I'm convinced it's going to happen. It's in the works. That's going to happen. So, also looking at the amount of production, I don't know if you've watched any of our prior episodes, but there were 13 features made in Iowa in 12 months. And granted, some of those are very professional, that have got distribution and those kinds of things. So the production is there.
Yep.
So I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So that's great. How can people find out more about Studio 81 or more about production working with you?
For sure. So if you go to Facebook or Instagram, we're on there as Studio 81. Our website, bookstudio81.com, is up. It is in its infancy. There is a press tab which you can see more photos and a little bit more information. But over time, as we get closer to our opening, you'll be able to schedule and book everything right there. So if you have a full day shoot, a half day shoot, a multi-day shoot, you can schedule it. You can see our calendar, what's open. You can see, it'll list, I guess, we have this many outlets. The cyc wall is pre-lit, right? We have a bunch of Aperture Novas that light it. And so it'll just give you a rundown. That way, exactly what we have, so you don't have to bring it. And maybe there's something that we have that you can rent. So if a lot of times, if a production is coming from out of state, they might only want to fly with their camera package and not the grip or supporting accessories. So just knowing that what we have, I think, is also super helpful. And one thing I didn't touch on is we have a incredible 750 square foot green room that would rival any green room for any major production you could ever expect. It's actually doubles as a set, and I curated the furniture, handpicked it, had it shipped in from all different places. A lot of it is Restoration Hardware, West Elm. It has a very nice feel. And we didn't really touch on it before, it's my fault. Opposite the cyc wall are going to be a couple of smaller sets. And when I say sets, they are more aimed at corporate and commercial work, not necessarily at film work. So, it's not going to be like, oh, here's a jail set and here's a hospital set. It's more commercial aimed.
Mm-hmm. But you do have space to construct something, I suppose, if you needed to. So
exactly. And the building owner,
space like that.
The building owner, after our initial run with that pharmaceutical company, was very excited with what happened. And there's 3,300 square feet that are adjacent that he is wanting me to take. So there's definitely opportunity and room for growth.
Yeah. We actually had a situation. We built a restaurant set from the 1920s. We did that this past summer. And very sadly, when it was over, we had to give the set away because we had no place to put it. We gave away this beautiful set just because there wasn't the space. And being able to have those kind of options is just absolutely terrific.
Yes.
So, well, we can't tell you how much we've appreciated having you on the show. So thank you so much. Everybody, make sure you tune in next week, or not next week, but in 2 weeks for our next episode. You can catch us at Depth of Field on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. So thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks.
Thank you for listening to Depth of Field, and check us out on YouTube and Spotify, where we post new episodes every 2 weeks.